Thank you for being here with us. I'd like to welcome you all to the Waterbury Arts Magnet School for the announcement of Governor Lamont's Everybody Learns initiative. I'd like to thank, of course, our governor. I'd like to also acknowledge our school superintendent who will say a few words, Dr. Verna Ruffin. I'd like to thank the WAMS school principal, Nick Albini. We also have here with us today Doug Casey, the director of Connecticut Commission for Education Technology, Ryan Kasandi, director of Connecticut Education Network, Bert Cohen, head of the Office of Broadband at the Office of Consumer Counsel, as well as our broadband partners, Altice, Atlantic Broadband, Comcast, Cox, and Charter, for their commitment to ensuring that there's equitable opportunity for all students to learn remotely. Before I turn it over to Dr. Ruffin, I just wanted to show you, Governor, this article that was in the Republican American yesterday. And if any of you probably can't see it, but that little green is the state of Connecticut. And the significance of this is an article that was published in the paper yesterday that stated Connecticut may be doing the best job in the nation of curbing the COVID-19 pandemic based on data compiled by a nonprofit research group that assesses the risk of outbreaks in each state. So I want to just congratulate and thank you for your leadership for making the state of Connecticut the safest state in America. Without further ado, turn it over to Dr. Verna Ruffin.
Thank you, Mayor, and it is a pleasure to be here today, and thank you, Governor, for being here to share in the talking points and in the wonderful initiatives that you continue to bring to the state of Connecticut. Here in Waterbury, we're exceptionally pleased to hear about the opportunities to increase our broadband and access for our families. We know that as we continue to work at reopening schools, it is critically important that we have access because we see it, and we see it on a daily basis. The digital divide is that divide that truly is the gap that we see. It's an opportunity gap as well as an achievement gap, and we're so very pleased to hear and to hear more from you about the ways that you're going to set Connecticut at the very top in creativity and innovation and making accessibility to all of our students and our families. We have definitely been keeping abreast all of the different plans that we are working collectively on as we look at reopening schools, and I do believe that the opportunity to expand on a quality distance learning, virtual learning is so important to continuous learning even when we are face-to-face with our students in the classroom. I see this as opportunities to expand on learning in a way that will truly be able to close achievement gaps because students do not stop learning after 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So I do believe with the accessibility of the actual tool of the computer as well as internet and quality fast speed internet, I think that's critically important as we design new ways to enhance our learning for all of our students. So thank you very much for being here today. I look forward to continuing to hear from you, and I'm very excited about the initiatives that you will be talking about very shortly.
Thank you, Dr. Ruffin. It's my distinct honor and pleasure now to call on our governor, who will discuss what his initiatives and ideas are, and he actually comes by this technology piece quite honestly, because that was pretty much his whole life before assuming the office of governor. Governor?
Very true, very true. Hey, what a gorgeous building, by the way. I love this campus. My next gig, I'm going to come back and learn a new instrument or something if I can. It's a little ironic that, you know, just about as we speak, the state Senate is following up on what the State House did by instituting telehealth and making that standard in terms of what we're doing around the state. The ability with telehealth to be able to get a really good diagnosis remotely saves a lot of time, saves a lot of money, makes it easier for us to provide critical health care. And it's just one reminder to me how COVID has changed this state forever. Telehealth, telecommuting, I can tell you, Mayor, I mean, the phones are ringing off the hook. The number of people around the country, around the region, New York City, taking a new look at Connecticut, realizing that this is just an amazing lifestyle, pretty safe, not a bad place if you have to quarantine, to have a little backyard, and an amazing education system. Doctor, and people recognize that, and another reason people want to come back to the state of Connecticut. And so what my friend Nick Simmons over here and our team have been, putting together is not just how we prepare for this fall when a fair number of students maybe don't feel comfortable coming back into the school. We have to find an alternate way for them to stay active in education. But also we're making one of the biggest commitments in the country to technology for students anywhere, $43 million, because Dr. Ruffin, as I said, it's not just about this next semester. I think it's about how we change education going forward. As you probably remember, I got some good news for you, I think, which is we've done a survey of all the different school districts around the state. It looks like right now about 75% of the students and the faculty really want to get back into the classroom, as long as we can show them that we're doing it safely. But just as importantly, 25% don't feel comfortable of those students getting back into the classroom right now, and we got to make sure that they do not get left behind. So that's what our commitment is. It started this summer. You maybe remember the partnership led by the Dalio Foundation, bought 60,000 Chromebooks, got those distributed to kids in need so we could start the learning in a new way after, sadly, we had to close down the schools due to COVID back during the spring. And what we're announcing today is we're acquiring another 50,000 Chromebooks, really focused on those kids in need, focused on the Alliance districts, getting them up and operating, hopefully in time for the new school year, so that for those kids in particular that don't feel comfortable coming back into the classroom, their learning doesn't stop. Obviously, it takes more than a Chromebook to make education come to life. So we're going to be training people here on campus, having instructors around to help families and kids in terms of how to use the services. We have a number of online scholastic relationships going forward. Nick has put together relationships with all the major cable operators. Because one of the things we found out, and I'm afraid we found out here in Waterbury as well as a lot of other cities, Mayor O'Leary, is that 20 to 30% of the kids just didn't have access to very good internet access, and they weren't able to take advantage of the online learning that was available this spring. So we've worked with the cable guys, of which I was one some years ago, to make sure that we can provide hotspots and cable access to 200 different hotspots around this state, so that at the community center, the library, or the park, we'll be able to designate where that is. You can go out there with your new Chromebook and continue your education in a very different way. In addition, we've negotiated a very low-cost lifeline rate, which we'll be paying for the next year, again, to get internet access to those kids in locations where they otherwise wouldn't be able to do it. And to me, this is the Brown v. Board of Education of our generation. The separate but equal back in the 50s is the digital divide of the 21st century. And I have spent a fair amount of my life thinking about IT and how we can expand access and expand education and bring the world closer to our students. And so it's on a personal note as well. I like the commitment that we're able to make, not just that it was prompted by this COVID reality that we have to deal with, but how it's going to change our state and change education forever. And now we just got to make sure that kids take full advantage of this. We can get the box, we can get the IT, we can get the wires in there. We got to get the teachers better, engaged in how we do this, and I'm really hopeful that a lot of the online learning is still electronically into the classroom. Through Zoom, that student will still be able to touch base with his or her friends and look a teacher in the eye. So it's about the academics, but it's also about the social and emotional learning, and we're going to find a way to technology to help bridge the gap. At the end of the day, nothing's going to ever replace an amazing building, an amazing classroom experience like this. We're going to do everything we can to build around that, and that's what this commitment is all about today. Thanks for inviting me, everybody.
Thank you, Governor. I now call on Doug Casey, Director of Connecticut Commission for Education Technology. Come on up, Doug.
Thank you, Governor. I want to first of all acknowledge the great work and leadership that has gone into this effort. Started off by Governor Lamont and his commitment to, as he said, making sure that we address that digital equity concern. I want to acknowledge Nick and the rest of the team. Sitting before you is a group of people who have amazing expertise, great creativity, wonderful collaborative skills to bring forth the best thinking within service to Connecticut. It includes many different agencies, many different insights and perspectives to contribute as best we can to making sure that we close that digital divide. In my service to the state's Commission for Educational Technology, which is the state's digital learning champion and policy lead, we talk a lot about the technology and the devices and the connections, but to echo Governor Lamont's comments earlier, I think it's really exciting to think about what this will do and the why behind the connections and the devices that students will get. And it's important to think about things like mastery-based learning, that students will be able to move ahead at a pace that works for them, that they'll be able to pause on those topics that they need refinement on. Things like project-based learning, where kids can work online together interactively to solve problems, because that's the future of learning and it's the future of preparing kids for the workforce. And so as we think about the content and the essential conditions for learning in the 21st century, of course, the Department of Education and so many local communities have worked very hard to help ensure that school takes place in person. We also need to make sure that technology does not become an impediment to whatever comes next. And so this real moonshot of an endeavor to make sure that no student is left behind when it comes to digital learning resources is inspiring. It provides a baseline for amazing things to come in the future. And I want to thank the governor for his championing this effort and all the team members. And I'm looking forward to an exciting, challenging, but exciting fall. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. We now will hear from Ryan Kasandi, Director of Connecticut Education Network.
Protocols. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Governor. This is actually an amazing opportunity for the Connecticut Education Network to really help the citizens of Connecticut through the physical infrastructure that we run, but more importantly, leverage our human network that we work within at CEN to just get practical solutions out to community members, especially at a time in need. We've got a very collaborative environment at the governor's office and through Nick's leadership and kind of herding the cats and corralling us and keeping us on point. And we thank you for that leadership at an executive level. And you've got a really talented individual over there, and keep it going. And within CEN, it's very much a community of practitioners that are getting together to find solutions that help with equity, digital divide. And CEN's been doing this for 20 years. We have connectivity to every district. We try and provide practical and secure solutions to all of them. And for the betterment of what's going on now in COVID and everything we're learning new today, how do we leverage the existing assets that Connecticut has to better serve the community members, whether they're in education, healthcare, business, or wherever our connectivity can span itself to. We appreciate this opportunity to serve in an advisory capacity and in a practical capacity to help roll out those access points and get connectivity to underserved communities, so that way, as long as somebody has a device and they have the means to get there, they can get on and get access to information via the bandwidth that in the capacity that CN can help provide both individually and collectively with our membership. We'll close on that. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Ryan. Next up, Bert Cohen, head of the Office of Broadband and Office of Consumer Counsel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Bert.
Dr. Ruffin, Governor Lamont. Today is July 28th. This project that the governor announced today did not happen yesterday. He didn't think of it yesterday. We've been working on this since the middle of May. The governor's leadership and foresight saw that we had to plan both for in-school learning and other alternatives. So, with that, let me just mention something about the Office of State Broadband, the Office of Consumer Counsel. We put a plug in for that. The Office of Consumer Counsel represents the interests of consumers in utility cases before the Public Utilities Regulatory Authority. Within the Office of Consumer Counsel, the State Broadband Office is designed to ensure that everybody in Connecticut is served with high-speed broadband, and we address the unserved, the underserved, and we are focusing on closing the digital divide, a term that you've heard very frequently. And this initiative by the governor is a small but very, very important, critical step in doing that. We look forward to working with you, Governor, and your staff in addressing the rest of the broadband needs of the state of Connecticut in the future. Thank you all.
Thank you, Bert. Christina Rodriguez from Atlantic Broadband.
Thank you for inviting us to be here today. I am very pleased to be here to let you know Atlantic Broadband supports this important initiative. As a company, we're all about connections, and we are confident that this initiative will help families with school-age children connect to vital online coursework and educational resources. Our thanks to Governor Lamont and his entire team for your work on this. Together, we will continue to act on our common commitment to bring internet connectivity to households in Connecticut where it is needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. And lastly, we'll call on our State Representative, Ron Napoli. Come on up, Ron.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Governor. Thank you, Superintendent. As a public high school teacher, it's very important that our students have the ability to connect to online learning. And I've seen it myself, where many of my students have multiple siblings all online at the same time, and there wasn't enough bandwidth to do work. So this is a very important program for Waterbury and all of our, and the entire state of Connecticut. So thank you so much for making this a priority. And I know in the State House, we want to help make sure we get this to the finish line. So please let us know how we can help. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Well, thank you, everyone. Just to give you a snapshot here of what this district looks like. So we have just under 19,000 children. To date, we've handed out about 8,500 Chromebooks. And so the additional 50,000 will be a very welcome addition, as we'd like to hand out at least another 2,500 or so, Governor. And be my personal preference to hand out even more to some of our lower grades as well, you know, 5th, 4th, and 3rd even, if we could. To all of our providers, we're honored to have you here with us. I think the thing that has been amazing for all of us during this pandemic is to watch everyone come together and collaborate for the good. And this is certainly, the digital divide in the urban districts like Waterbury, Bridgeport, Hartford, and New Haven is significant, just like the achievement gap is significant. And by everyone coming together, the providers and through the leadership of the governor and his great staff has just been such a welcome for us here who struggle day in and day out to make sure that our kids, particularly in urban districts, are getting what they need so that we can get through this pandemic and move forward. But as Governor Lamont has said on many different occasions, this is going to be what we all believe, the new norm. We will get through this pandemic and we will get back to regular learning. And there will be another time and another place, and I hope it's long after I'm gone, and hopefully the governor will still be around, but at the end of the day, we believe strongly that we're going to prepare our children and their parents and our teachers and administrators for what the future looks like. And so this is a great day. It's a great day for the state of Connecticut, and certainly a great day for the city of Waterbury. With that, we have no one further to speak, but if anyone has any questions, we'd be certainly happy to try and answer them.
How close does this get the state of Connecticut to having every student with a single device? Do we have any sense of that?
Yeah, I'm happy to chime in and pass it over to Doug, but between 60,000 laptops given out announced in March, and then another 50 today, that's 110,000, nearly 1/5 of all the 550,000 students in this state. And luckily, we live in a state where our districts already are very generous and robust in giving out devices. So our estimates is it's pretty close, but I will let Doug fill in some more.
I echo those numbers and to talk a little bit about how we landed on them. The State Department of Education conducted a survey in May. Our commission conducted a survey of districts in April. We have multiple contact points, and this is really a demand-driven assessment of the need. We also, in the next day or so, will be sending out a contact form to each district leader, asking them to articulate the needs. So we are asking multiple times. We're spending a lot of time, thought, and discernment about what that need looks like. The other important consideration to think about is there will be different forms of connectivity. For example, when possible, we would like there to be a fixed high-speed broadband connection in a physical home. But the reality is that there are different kinds of kids in different kinds of situations. We sit in a magnet school that attracts kids from different towns across the region. And so we need to think about having mobile solutions so that a student attending a magnet or a charter school, or perhaps in a dual custody situation where they have parents in multiple towns, that they have a connectivity solution that goes with them. So we're addressing those in the design of this solution. And we've contacted the districts. We've asked for them to really come around as partners in this, help us understand what those needs are, and be that really good matchmaker in making sure that every student has the connectivity need that fits for them and their families.
Sure.
Can you give us a snapshot of how this has closed the gap in terms of comparing how many children, how many students in Waterbury now will have connectivity to what had connectivity in March?
And I'm not certain I heard the last part of your question. Did you ask how many students in our city have connectivity?
Now with the additions to what it was like in March?
How many more students have connectivity now than when we first started the pandemic?
I couldn't answer the exact number that have connectivity. What we found is after we've offered different options, we believe that more families took the opportunity for some of the free services for internet connectivity. And what we began to hear at that point was more need for a device than for the connectivity. We believe that we probably have 10 to 15% of our students that probably still continue to need additional connectivity within our city based on the surveys that we have run. Do I have an estimate of?
What the need, you said that you still estimate that maybe 10 to 15% still need that, the devices. What was the need in March in terms of percentage?
I believe it was, Doctor, I believe the need in March, we discovered what the need was actually a little bit lower than what we expected. The need was somewhere between 30 and 35%.
Yes.
And we've got it down to about 10 to 15%.
I'm sorry, I'm not able to always hear your question very, yes.
It's a tough echo, yeah.
Kids who have the devices or internet access. That's two separate things. When you talk about that 10 to 15%, are those children who need devices or who need the internet connection?
We were talking about both. The students that we anticipate still need connectivity would be around 10 to 15%. The students that continue to need devices, we believe we have approximately 4,500 that will need it. Keeping in mind that when we initially requested the need for a device, many of the families requested one computer, and then when it was determined they did not have the broadband because multiple students were in need of it, they began to ask for a computer for other children, and they began to talk about the slowness of the network.
I'd just add on to that, what makes Governor Lamont's plan so unique and robust is that we're committing the state to pay for every last student, internet, every last student in each city and district who indicated that they didn't have connectivity. It's 60,000 students. Okay. That was what, as Doug alluded, we sent out 2 surveys to districts to clarify the need. And we were able to pay, or Governor Lamont, because of his leadership, is stepping up and committing to pay for every last one. That'll be for 12 months of service, so all the way up until the end of next summer.
Could you provide a breakdown of the $43 million? How much is for the laptops? How much is for the connections?
Sure. So 22 million for laptops. That's 50,000 laptops. 15 million for connectivity, and that's to pay for 60,000 students for 12 months of at-home connectivity or a hotspot device. It's $4.5 million for public hotspots across 200 sites across the state through Connecticut Education Network. And then there is social emotional learning content in there, which is a learning program for social emotional learning, which all districts will have access to. And that's $2 million.
And we're personally, or I'm sure other cities would agree, very, very grateful for the hotspot connectivity. That is, to us, high demand. We've heard from our students and our constituents loud and clear. We've been able to, prior to COVID, put Wi-Fi on our green and other community areas that are heavily traveled, if you will. But now having the ability to open up those hotspots to even larger group of people and more locations is really conducive to good learning. Students sometimes like to actually find a hotspot where it's nice and quiet, where they can get on instead of maybe in a very crowded and hot apartment setting or things along that nature. So thank you. The hotspots is huge for us here in the city of Waterbury. Any other questions? Yes.
How will the 50,000 new laptops be distributed?
How will the 50,000 new laptops be distributed? Who'd like to take that? Sir?
I can jump in.
Thanks, Doug.
As I mentioned earlier, the request form that will be coming in from districts will give us a sense of the kind of computer that districts would like to order for the students. And again, the district leads are key here. They know the families. Many of our district's teachers have been calling families directly to understand their acute needs. So our local partners have a really good sense of what's needed. The State Department of Education will be leading the procurement process in partnership with the Department of Administrative Services. And then those devices will make their way to local school districts where, again, those point people who have indicated the need will be the direct boots on the ground to make sure that those computers end up in the hands of the students that need them. Hopefully I've answered your question.
The neediest families.
Correct. And again, our local partners are absolutely essential in the design of the program and the deployment and sort of operationalization of all of the connectivity and device needs. They know the families, they have relationships with them, and I think they're going to provide that key connection to make sure that this program is successful.
One of the added costs during the pandemic, the technology needs is just one of the things that districts are saying they're having additional costs. Is there more state aid on the way? In addition, is this a part of a rollout of other additional aid that's coming, or what's the game plan to help out districts, if at all?
So a month ago, as you maybe remember, we sent out the survey as well as the parameters about how you can get back to school healthy, and we're there to provide anything these schools need in order to make public health a priority so that our teachers and our students feel confident. That will come out of the CARES funding. Secondly, obviously, we got the technology piece, another big piece. That was led again by the survey, get an idea of what the priorities were there, find out where the most needs are going to be. If the rest of your question is about what else we're going to do with that CARES Act funding, what are the other priorities going to be there? I would say outside of education, we've got real needs with the not-for-profits. The hospitals have come in with some requests. There'll probably be some flexibility for the state to channel the money where needed. Right now, we got a lot of overtime and other COVID-related expenses. I'd say about a 2.8 of the 1.4 has already been claimed.
Sorry, just to follow up, I want to make sure I understand. So a lot of districts have said things like they need to pay for additional PPE, they need to pay for additional staff to reduce class sizes. Is there any help from the state, in addition to the funding that you're announcing here, for technology support and internet connection? Is there any help on the way for those sort of costs as well?
Yeah, like the PPE, we provide that. We're going to provide anything you need in order to guarantee public health so your students and teachers know they can get back safely.
A quick clarification point. So that $43 million, did that come out of the CARES Act?
I believe it did.
Okay. And then I have a question for Dr. Ruff and for everyone. Sure. Is Waterbury planning to reopen in a hybrid model?
We are currently surveying our students and our teachers to determine the return and the comfort level in returning, and from there we will develop the best model. Both our Plan 1 and Plan 2 did allow for an option of selecting virtual learning. Our Plan 1 was a short term if someone was planning on not returning in short term. Our Model 2, which is more of the hybrid, has a virtual academy built into it as well as in-person learning.
I just wanted to ask, because I know a lot of superintendents have been sharing concerns about the high schools being maybe more difficult to cohort.
Yes, the educational cohorts by students are extremely challenging to not possible to adhere to on the secondary level, and so we were aware of that very early as we built our plans.
I just add, and that's just what we heard statewide as well, that while, K through 5, real priority in the classroom, thought that could be done on a very broad base. When you get up to the high school where it's not as easy to cohort different classes and the such, much more likely you're going to see a hybrid model there.
Any other questions?
Will this technology be available for the start of school? these computers?
What's the timing on this? Do you guys know?
That is the plan. We are going to move as fast as we can. The internet connections will be able to move a little bit more quickly because it's not a supply issue, whereas there's such demand and strain on supply for laptops. But we're confident we can get, or very confident, hopeful to be able to get all the internet connections up over the next 4 to 5 weeks. Again, we are moving as fast as we can. Doug, what do you think would be a reasonable timeline?
I mentioned before that this group was very creative and resourceful, and to echo Nick's comments, we're ordering as aggressively and assertively as we can using all of the resources we have. The reality is the entire world is looking at supply chain issues when it comes to technology, so we're very hopeful to get those in the early fall. We are also, in the event that not every computer comes in at the launch of the school year, we're also proactively speaking with districts about how they can leverage existing technology resources to make sure there is a device in every student's hand. So everything in our power we're doing and pushing that procurement process to be as quick and expedient as possible to get those devices into students' hands.
I think one of the things that Dr. Ruffin and I have spoken about, Governor, is we have a lot of computer laboratories in each one of our schools. And although students, depending on what the fall opening looks like or doesn't look like, one thing that we will be doing is making sure that those laboratories are open during the day and even the evening hours for students and/or parents who need that type of technology and engagement.
Yeah, Neil, some of the interesting ideas we've gotten from schools as they think about the hybrid model is for some of those parents, for example, where they the kids got to be at school, and maybe those aren't the days that the school is open for them. A lot of them are making the computer labs open just so they have a semi-supervised area where they don't have to be at home.
Right, and we were ready to launch that, so we just did, but
you're ahead of it.
But we've had the conversations, and we're happy to do so. Particularly, there's a lot of opportunity there as well. If there is a little bit of back delay in the additional 50,000 laptops, certainly I want to make sure that our parents and our district students know that our computer labs will be open, even off hours.
Plan on where we're going to distribute all the hotspots in the state, or how are we going to distribute all these hotspots for kids who may need it?
Do you mean the community sites, like the public hotspots, or the at-home internet?
So we know where to point our viewers at.
Yeah, Ryan can speak to that.
Sure. So CN has connectivity into all the towns, and we worked with the governor's office and Nick's team to identify the top 20 urban and rural towns in most need based on ACH and connected home data and where the largest gaps are. So the towns that had those identified connectivity gaps that are broadly available via survey statistics to kind of top sort those and work top down on those things. So both in urban and rural, where digital divide doesn't care about urban and rural, it affects both areas a lot, and work with those towns and their leaders to figure out the best spot for that, whether it be the community library or a green space next door, or off a municipal building, or wherever we can leverage the best connectivity and provide the highest performance for any of the citizens that are in that town.
It's a great urban advantage, but it's also key to bringing some of our small towns back to life. As you can imagine, a smaller town, not quite as good internet access, not line of sight perhaps, to have a hotspot in one of the town greens there so that all of a sudden you can do anything you want business-wise or academic-wise from Town Green in Brooklyn, Connecticut as you can in Brooklyn, New York. And that's going to be part of the way the state changes forever.
Well, thank you, everyone. It's an honor to have you all here. And, of course, special thanks to the governor for the Everyone Learns initiative, and we're thrilled. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Neil. Good work, buddy. It's good to see you.